Thank you for joining this virtual presentation on the Oregon Board of Pharmacy's new regulations. This presentation will focus on Oregon Administrative Rules, Chapter 855, Division 125, related to certified Oregon pharmacy technicians and pharmacy technicians. The rules come into effect on March 1st, 2024. This presentation is designed to help all licensees and registrants, but especially certified Oregon pharmacy technicians and pharmacy technicians, to understand and comply with these important updates. Throughout this presentation, I will use the term technician as referring to both pharmacy technicians and certified Oregon pharmacy technicians, unless I specify otherwise. The mission of the Oregon Board of Pharmacy is to promote and protect public health, safety, and welfare by ensuring high standards in the practice of pharmacy and through effective regulation of the manufacture and distribution of drugs. By the end of this presentation, participants will be able to demonstrate an understanding of licensee and registrant responsibilities related to record retention, confidentiality, and mandatory reporting to the board. Accurately summarize the key requirements, procedures, and potential consequences related to technician licensure in Oregon. Identify the permitted tasks technicians can perform under the supervision, direction, and control of a pharmacist from those prohibited practices, and recognize the limitations in law that prevent independent judgment or decision-making. And finally, apply knowledge of the revised rules and responsibilities of technicians in OAR 855-125, including those related to licensure, supervision, permitted, and prohibited practices. The assessment questions for this presentation are: 1, how many working days does a licensee have to report a change in their preferred email address to the board? 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, or 20 days? Question 2, in Oregon, who can supervise a technician in activities where the technician is assisting in the practice of pharmacy? Any healthcare professional, a registered nurse, a pharmacist, a pharmacy technician with at least 5 years of experience. Which of the following statements is true about technician responsibilities and limitations? The supervising pharmacist is solely responsible for the technician actions when assisting the pharmacist in the practice of pharmacy. A technician may only perform tasks they are permitted to perform by the pharmacist who is providing them supervision, direction, and control. A technician is not required to identify their license type in chart notes. A technician only needs to complete training on the pharmacy policies and procedures when they are first hired. A pharmacist may delegate to a pharmacy technician the following task: performing final verification of the drug, dosage, quantity, and expiration date, administering a vaccine, selecting the vaccines to be administered, advising a patient on the use of a drug. Which of the following statements is not true about continuing pharmacy education documentation requirements? You must register and track ACPE credits with the CPE monitor. You must upload all board-approved or ACCME credits to your eGov profile. You must keep all documentation related to your continuing pharmacy education for 6 years. Excess continuing pharmacy education hours can be carried forward to the next renewal period. Before we discuss the new rules, let's first take a high-level look at the laws and rules that govern the practice of pharmacy. First, there are federal laws that govern pharmacy practice in every state. These are found in the United States Code, or USC, and are enacted by Congress and signed into law by the President. Examples of USC that apply to pharmacy are 21 USC, which contains the Controlled Substances Act, and the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. The Drug Supply Chain Security Act is also contained in 21 USC, as it is found within the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. The Code of Federal Regulations, or CFR, are enacted by federal agencies, such as the Food and Drug Administration or the Drug Enforcement Administration. For example, 21 CFR contains regulations related to the DEA. There are also state laws that govern the practice of pharmacy in Oregon, which are found in Oregon Revised Statutes, or ORS, and are enacted by the state legislature and signed into law by the governor. The chapters of ORS that apply to pharmacy are ORS 689 and ORS 475. The Oregon administrative rules are enacted by state agencies like the Board of Pharmacy. OAR 855 contains the rules enacted by the Board of Pharmacy. Other OAR chapters contain rules enacted by other state agencies, like the Oregon Medical Board and OAR 847, and the Oregon Health Authority and OAR 333. In some cases, the board will adopt an outside standard by reference in the OARs. Board rules adopt specific USCs and CFRs, and even standards set by the United States Pharmacopoeia, or USP, which is a private standard-setting organization. Incorporation by reference, as this process is called, occurs when a state agency adopts a government rule or other published standard that in effect says that it is adopting that federal law or private standard as written and makes it legally binding in this state. For example, USP Chapter 795 on non-sterile compounding and USP Chapter 797 on sterile compounding are standards that have been adopted by reference in OAR 855 and are enforceable in the state for the version that is stated in the rule. Board of Pharmacy laws are written and enforced under an area of law called administrative law. Other major areas of law that you may be familiar with are civil law and criminal law. The board is always in the process of updating pharmacy rules. In 2020, the board directed agency staff to update all of the rules contained in OAR 855. As a result, the board is in the midst of a major overhaul of all of its rules under Chapter 855. This means you can expect significant updates over the next few years, especially regarding outlets and license types. Here's what's happening. The board is revamping the entire rule structure. The new rules will be renumbered into the 100s and organized in a more logical way. Definitions will now come first, followed by key board information like policies, procedures, and fees. A dedicated division for public health emergencies will come next, as these rules modify licensee and outlet rules when a public health emergency is in effect. Next up, clearer divisions will be created for different license types, making it easier to find relevant rules. Then, each type of outlet, retail pharmacy, institutional pharmacy, will have its own designated division of rule. And finally, facilities such as manufacturers, wholesalers, will have updated rules. These are also drug outlets, but sometimes it's easier to call them a facility. It's important to note that this is still a work in progress. The final structure and numbering of divisions may change before all the new rules are finalized. You should keep an eye on the board website and communications for updates on the rule revision process. As the new rules roll out, there may be adjustments needed to your operations and your procedures. Stay informed and be ready to adapt. The rules in italics on this slide have already been revised. The rules in bold are currently being revised. At the August 2023 board meeting, the board adopted the majority of the new rules that are effective on March 1st, 2024 for Divisions 102, Board Administration, 104, Universal Rules, 115, Pharmacist, 120, Interns and Preceptors, and 125, Certified Oregon Pharmacy Technicians and Pharmacy Technicians. Today's presentation will focus on the new rules for Certified Oregon Pharmacy Technicians and Pharmacy Technicians that are found in OAR 855, Division 125, and will also cover some of the universal rules in Division 104 that apply to technicians. The rules in Division 104 are universal rules. These rules apply to all licensees and registrants, which are also known as outlets, and include technicians and pharmacies. This slide shows each rule contained in Division 104. I'll go over the 3 highlighted rules in greater detail on the upcoming slides, but let me first quickly review the other rules in Division 104. 855-104-0005 stipulates that applicants, licensees, and registrants are obligated to promptly adhere to all board requests, including providing accurate and complete responses to inquiries, submitting requested materials within specified timelines, and complying with subpoenas, as well as adhering to the terms outlined in board orders and agreements. 855-104-0050 mandates that board licensees and registrants provide patients or their representatives with access to their pharmacy health information upon request, allowing inspection and copying of the record, with certain exceptions defined by law and rule. And it emphasizes compliance with specified time frame for responding to requests not to exceed 30 days. 855-104-0060 is currently under development. The rule will clearly outline how to request public records from the board. The next three rules, 855-104-100, 105, and 110, are about cases and hearings. 855-104-0115 empowers a board-authorized compliance officer to conduct inspections at any drug outlet during reasonable hours, allowing for the inspection of various elements, including conditions, drugs, and records, with licensees and employees obligated to fully cooperate, and refusal to permit inspection is deemed grounds for disciplinary action. 855-104-0150 facilitates the licensure of military spouses or domestic partners in Oregon. Now, let's look at three of the rules in Division 104 more closely. First, OAR 855-104-0010, duty to report. Except when confidential health information laws prevent disclosure, every pharmacy licensee must report certain events to the board within specific timeframes. Within 10 days, you must report any misdemeanor or felony conviction against you, an arrest for a felony, any reasonable suspicion of a violation of Oregon statutes or board rules. This means if you think a coworker has violated the pharmacy laws and rules, you are required to report this to the board. Within 10 working days, you must report any reasonable suspicion that another licensee within the board or any health professional board has engaged in conduct prohibited or unprofessional conduct by their respective board. This means that if you think a nurse has violated the nursing laws and rules, you are required to report this to the nursing board. Licensees are required to report any changes in their legal name, names used in pharmacy practice, preferred email address, personal phone number, personal physical and mailing addresses, and employer within 15 days. A licensee who in good faith reports as mandated by ORS 676150 or ORS 689455 is granted immunity from civil liability. This ensures protection for pharmacists, certified Oregon pharmacy technicians, and pharmacy technicians against civil damages resulting from such reporting. Now for the second rule, OAR 855-104-0015. Licensees or registrants of the board are prohibited from disclosing patient information to third parties without patient consent, except as specified in the rule, which allows disclosure to the board, authorized healthcare practitioners, third parties as required or permitted by law, and to the patient or authorized individuals, with a prohibition on unauthorized access or acquisition of patient information. And finally, the third rule, OAR 855-104-0055, each licensee and registrant is required to create and securely retain documents and records as specified by ORS 475, ORS 689, and OAR 855, with a general retention period of 3 years. This is extended to 7 years for clinical pharmacy records. Technicians must maintain training records related to vaccine administration for 6 years or upload the documents into the licensee's electronic licensing record in eGov. Records generated by a registrant, also known as a pharmacy, must be stored on-site for at least 12 months, provided to the board immediately upon request during inspection, and may be stored off-site after 12 months to be provided within 3 business days upon request. Records not belonging to the registrant must be securely stored by a pharmacist and provided to the board within 3 business days, with the possibility of longer retention periods if required by federal law or due to a board investigation or request. Before we transition to the new rules in OAR 855-125, let's take a few minutes to review some basic concepts in the Oregon Revised Statutes, or law, that are related to technicians. Let's start with the definitions of a pharmacist and a pharmacy technician in the law. Oregon Revised Statutes, ORS 689005, paren 27. Pharmacist means an individual licensed by the state to engage in the practice of pharmacy or to engage in the practice of clinical pharmacy. Paren 29, pharmacy technician means a person licensed by the State Board of Pharmacy who assists the pharmacist in the practice of pharmacy pursuant to the rules of the board. It's essential to understand this distinction. Only a pharmacist can engage in the practice of pharmacy. While crucial to the process, a technician is not permitted to engage in the practice of pharmacy, but they can assist a pharmacist who is engaging in the practice of pharmacy. Pharmacy technicians are integral to ensuring patient safety and medication accuracy. They assist pharmacists in providing efficient and effective care. This slide focuses on two key Oregon Revised Statutes or laws. ORS 689-225, paren 4, and ORS 689-486, paren 6. These statutes outline the responsibilities of both the State Board of Pharmacy and licensed pharmacists in overseeing and supervising pharmacy technicians. ORS 689-225, paren 4 requires the State Board of Pharmacy to establish rules for pharmacy technicians working under the supervision, direction, and control of pharmacists. The law requires that the rules written by the board contain guidelines for adequate supervision of a technician by a pharmacist. ORS 689-486, paren 6, emphasizes the pharmacist's ultimate responsibility for the pharmacy technician's work. It states, a person licensed to perform the duties of a pharmacy technician may perform the duties of a pharmacy technician only under the supervision, direction, and control of a licensed pharmacist. This means that pharmacists are not only responsible for overseeing technicians, but also for ensuring the accuracy and safety of all medication-related tasks that are performed under their supervision. When you are performing the duties of a pharmacy technician, you must know which pharmacist is supervising, directing, and controlling you at all times. As I mentioned earlier, Oregon Revised Statutes, ORS 689, contains the laws related to pharmacy. In Oregon, only a pharmacist can engage in the practice of pharmacy. ORS 689-005, paren 31, defines what is the practice of pharmacy. Let's explore some key activities that fall under this umbrella. First, interpretation and evaluation of prescriptions. This critical task ensures that patients receive the right medication at the right dosage. By law, only a pharmacist is authorized to interpret and evaluate prescriptions. If the pharmacist permits, the pharmacist may direct a technician to enter prescriptions into a software system, and the pharmacist is responsible to supervise the act, to provide control and ensure the technician is trained appropriately and is also performing the duty correctly. The pharmacist is also responsible to verify the technician's work when the technician uses judgment when assisting the pharmacist by entering the prescription into the software system. Second, compounding, dispensing, and labeling. From mixing personalized medications to applying accurate labels, these steps safeguard patient safety and medication effectiveness. Only a pharmacist is authorized to compound, dispense, and label drugs. A technician may assist the pharmacist in compounding, dispensing, and labeling. If the pharmacist permits, the pharmacist may direct the technician to compound, prepare prescriptions for dispensing, including the labeling of the prescription. The pharmacist is responsible to supervise these acts and provide control to ensure the technician is trained appropriately and performing the duty correctly. The pharmacist is responsible for verifying the technician's work is accurate and that the patient receives the right medication that is properly labeled. Third, patient care services. Beyond dispensing pills, pharmacists actively manage medication therapy, assess risks, and provide comprehensive medication reviews. While only a pharmacist can provide patient care services such as medication therapy management or comprehensive medication reviews, a pharmacist may permit and must direct the technician to acquire the patient's medication lists from the patient, their pharmacy, or another provider. The pharmacist is responsible to supervise this act and provide control to ensure the technician is trained appropriately and performing the duty correctly. The patient's medication history, once obtained by the technician, then must be reviewed and verified by a pharmacist. Remember, the dividing line is clear. Any task that requires judgment, independent decision-making, or direct patient interaction falls within the practice of pharmacy and must be performed by the pharmacist. Technicians, while invaluable, support these activities under the pharmacist's supervision and cannot independently engage in them. Every step in dispensing medication, from interpretation to dispensing, must involve the pharmacist's oversight and verification to ensure patient safety and optimal care. Now let's look at the recently updated technician rules outlined in OAR 855, Division 125. Remember that throughout this presentation, technician refers to both certified organ pharmacy technicians and pharmacy technicians unless specified otherwise. These new rules represent a significant shift from the previous rules. Previously, the board focused on detailed lists of tasks that technicians could and could not perform. However, recognizing the dynamic nature of pharmacy practice and the potential for these lists to become outdated quickly, the new approach takes a different direction. Instead of restrictive lists, the updated rules clarify the technician's authority to assist pharmacists in practicing pharmacy, as long as they remain under the pharmacist's direct supervision, direction, and control. This reflects the collaborative nature of pharmacy teams and acknowledges the evolving responsibilities of technicians within the profession. And now let's review the rules in Division 125 for technicians. This division of rules applies to an individual who assists a pharmacist in the practice of pharmacy. There's that word again, assist. The rule specifies that only those licensed as certified organ pharmacy technicians or pharmacy technicians can assist a pharmacist in the practice of pharmacy. Technicians must act in compliance with relevant statutes and rules under the supervision, direction, and control of a pharmacist. In 2022, a law, House Bill 4034, added final verification as a task that can be completed by a technician when the pharmacist permits them to do so. This final verification is not what was traditionally referred to as final verification in a pharmacy. The law gave final verification a very different and specific meaning set by the legislature. We'll discuss this activity later in the presentation when we discuss OAR 855-125-0105, which is the general responsibilities of a technician. In addition, only persons licensed as a certified organ pharmacy technician may use the title of certified organ pharmacy technician and COPT. To be eligible for licensure as a certified organ pharmacy technician or pharmacy technician, applicants must prove they are at least 18 years old and possess a high school diploma or equivalent. Additionally, certified organ pharmacy technician candidates must pass a National Pharmacy Technician Certification exam from either the Pharmacy Technician Certification Board, PTCB, or the National Health Career Association, NHA. I'm not going to go through each of these rules individually. However, you're encouraged to review them on your own time, but let me give you a brief summary. OAR 855-125-0030 outlines the application process for technician licensure. It's accessible on the board website and specifies required documentation, fees, the National Fingerprint Background Check, and a moral turpitude statement. Penalties may be imposed for incomplete or inaccurate applications, and an application not completed within 90 days will expire, requiring reapplication. But the board may consider information from previous submissions. Certified organ pharmacy technician applicants must also provide a passing result from the PTCB or NHA National Pharmacy Technician Certification exams. And penalties may be imposed for failure to comply with application requirements or other grounds that are specified in law. Technician licenses expire on June 30th in even-numbered years and may be renewed biennially. OAR 855-125-0035 outlines the renewal or reinstatement of a technician license. Applicants must fulfill requirements, including paying biennial license fee, completing continuing pharmacy education, undergoing annual criminal background checks, providing documentation of conduct disclosure, and for reinstatement, completing 10 continuing pharmacy education hours with specific criteria. Penalties may apply for noncompliance with application requirements or other grounds specified in law. And note, continued national certification is not mandatory for license renewal of the COPT license. In OAR 855-125-0040, a technician may allow their license to lapse. They can do this by failing to renew or request acceptance of a lapse before the expiration date. The lapse does not constitute discipline. The board retains jurisdiction for investigations or disciplinary actions, and individuals may not assist in the practice of pharmacy during a lapsed license. They do have the option to apply for renewal or reinstatement according to the rules, and if accepting the lapse, the board will notify the licensee of the termination date. A technician has the option in OAR 855-125-0050 to request the board's acceptance of a voluntary surrender of their license. This type of surrender is considered disciplinary action, and the license remains effective until the board officially accepts the surrender, after which a final order terminating the license will be issued, requiring cessation of the assistance in the practice of pharmacy, with the surrendered license ineligible for renewal. Individuals who seek to regain licensure must reapply for reinstatement according to the rules, unless a final order explicitly prohibits such a type of reinstatement. The board retains jurisdiction for investigations, actions, or disciplinary proceedings against the licensee who has surrendered their license. In OAR 855-125-0105, it lists out the general responsibilities of technician. In Paren 1, each technician bears individual responsibility for their actions, though accountability also extends to the pharmacist and the pharmacy. So, if you count the wrong medication and place it in the patient's bottle, you are responsible for your actions. In addition, the pharmacist who is supervising you and the pharmacy may also be responsible for the error. Additionally, like I discussed previously in Paren 2, technicians are prohibited from engaging in the practice of pharmacy as defined in ORS 689-005. In Paren 3, A through D, technicians must adhere to all state and federal laws and rules governing the practice of pharmacy, assist only under the supervision, direction, and control of a pharmacist, be aware of the supervising pharmacist identity at all times, and, as mentioned earlier, operate within the limits of their license duties. In 3, E through H, technicians must operate within the defined scope of duties provided by the supervising pharmacist, perform only tasks they are trained for, execute duties appropriately, and only access the pharmacy area when a pharmacist is physically present at the drug outlet pharmacy or at the remote dispensing site pharmacy, or RDSP. One example of Paren E through G is with compounding. A technician can only compound if the pharmacist who is supervising them allows them to do so. When compounding, the technician must only perform compounding that they have been trained to perform. So if you are only trained to perform non-sterile compounding, you can't do sterile compounding. And when you compound, you must do it appropriately. In Paren H, you may be wondering what a remote dispensing site pharmacy, or RDSP, is. This is a new type of pharmacy that is staffed by a technician under the supervision, direction, and control of an Oregon licensed pharmacist using a telepharmacy system. A telepharmacy system is a system of telecommunications technologies that enables monitoring, documenting, and recording of the delivery of pharmacy services at a remote location by an electronic method, which must include the use of audio and video, still image capture, and store and forward. If you are a pharmacy technician working in an RDSP, you can only access the pharmacy area when a pharmacist is supervising you. In Paren 3, I through K, technicians must be visibly identified as a technician in their interactions, and they must display their license prominently. In Paren I, technicians need to make sure that their name tags properly display their titles and document their actions in software or charting systems, or when they're interacting on the phone, they need to clearly state they are a technician. In paren 3, K through L, technicians must complete initial and ongoing training that aligns with their tasks before they perform those tasks. This ensures compliance with written policies and procedures. Technicians need to make sure they are trained before they perform any task. So think about compounding, the example from the last slide. You can't compound if you haven't been trained. Follow written policies and procedures, reviewing and documenting adherence with each update. Prior to working in a pharmacy, you must review the pharmacy's policies and procedures. If the outlet updates the policy, you must also review the update. The pharmacy must maintain records that show that you've completed the review of these policies. In paren 3M, technicians must ensure accurate dispensing and delivery of prescriptions to the correct party. Think about the example earlier about counting the wrong medication and putting it in the patient's bottle. Technicians must ensure they are accurate when dispensing and when delivering prescriptions. Selling one patient's prescription to another patient at the pharmacy is an example of not delivering a prescription to the correct party. Now let's review final verification. Like I said earlier, this final verification is not what we have traditionally used this term in a pharmacy. This is final verification as defined by the legislature. In this case, a pharmacist is permitted to delegate or assign the responsibility or authority of final verification of the drug and dosage, device, or product to a technician. In this case, the technician is not assisting the pharmacist in the practice of pharmacy. The technician is directly engaging in the practice of pharmacy as permitted by the pharmacist who has delegated that activity to the technician. Rather than being under the pharmacist's supervision, direction, and control, the technician is under the pharmacist's supervision for the task of final verification. This was the first activity allowed for pharmacy technicians in statutes that can be delegated to a technician. Final verification, as defined in 2022 law, House Bill 4034, permits a pharmacist to delegate final verification to a technician. I'm going to read the new statute in its entirety so I don't paraphrase it incorrectly. It is very specific. As used in this section, final verification means after a prescription information is entered into a pharmacy's electronic system and reviewed by a pharmacist for accuracy, a physical verification that the drug and drug dosage, device, or product selected from the pharmacy's inventory is the prescribed drug and drug dosage, device, or product. In paren 2, a pharmacist may delegate and a pharmacy technician may perform under the supervision of a pharmacist final verification. In delegating final verification under this section, a pharmacist shall use the pharmacist's reasonable professional judgment and shall ensure that the final verification does not require the exercise of discretion by the pharmacy technician. As you'll see on the slide in 4B, discretion means individual choice or judgment. If a technician is performing final verification, they cannot use judgment. If judgment is needed, then the pharmacist must perform the final verification. This is consistent with other laws that require any judgment made by a technician to be verified by a pharmacist. Please note that the law does not permit the technician to verify the expiration date, quantity, or dosage form, just the drug and dosage, device, or product. Each technician is obligated to adhere to OAR 855-104-0010 regarding duty to report and OAR 855-104-0015 concerning confidentiality. We covered both of these rules at the beginning of the presentation while discussing Division 104. OAR 855-125-0135 is essential for understanding the role of a technician as it addresses what a technician is permitted to do. Again, previously the board focused on detailed list of tasks that technicians could and could not perform. However, recognizing the dynamic nature of pharmacy practice and the potential for these lists to become outdated quickly, this new approach takes a different direction. Instead of restrictive lists, the updated rules clarify the technician's authority to assist pharmacists in practicing pharmacy as long as they remain under the pharmacist's direct supervision, direction, and control. This reflects the collaborative nature of pharmacy teams and acknowledges the evolving responsibilities of technicians within the profession. For example, the previous rule stated that a technician may pack, pour, place a drug in a container, affix a label on a container. This is still permitted, as this is assisting a pharmacist in the practice of pharmacy as defined in ORS 689-005-31B. We talked about this earlier: compounding, dispensing, and labeling of drugs and devices. The previous rules used to say they may enter information into the computer and record patient or medication information in the computer system. This is still permitted, as this is assisting a pharmacist in the practice of pharmacy, as defined in ORS 689-005-31A. Talked about this one earlier: the interpretation and evaluation of prescription orders. Previous rules said a technician may reconstitute prescription medications. This is still permitted, as this is assisting a pharmacist in the practice of pharmacy, as defined in ORS 689-005-31B, compounding, dispensing, and labeling of drugs and devices. The important thing to remember is that the pharmacist must verify all technician work if the technician utilized judgment. So with packing, pouring, and placing a drug in a container, the pharmacist must verify the technician put the right drug, quantity, etc. in that container. With entering information in the computer, the pharmacist must verify the technician entered the information properly. With reconstitution, the pharmacist must verify the technician will utilize the correct amount of water prior to mixing. Technicians are also permitted to perform final verification that I just went over, as outlined in OAR 855-125-0105-4. The last slide had broad statements about what is permitted. This slide lists specific activities that are not permitted. Each technician must refrain from practicing pharmacy, as defined in ORS 689-005, except for the tasks that are explicitly permitted in OAR 855-125-0105-4, which was the final verification that is the practice of pharmacy, but is permitted to be delegated by a pharmacist to a technician, and which excludes activities such as evaluating and interpreting prescriptions, conducting drug utilization or drug regimen reviews, and consulting on patient-related medical information that requires judgment. In paren A, prescription evaluation and interpretation. Assessing the validity, legality, or appropriateness of prescriptions is the pharmacist's responsibility. Please be aware that the previous rules prohibited a technician from communicating or accepting by oral communication a new or transferred prescription of any nature. The new rules no longer prohibit this. A technician may assist a pharmacist by transcribing a prescription received orally. However, if the technician has to use judgment to transcribe the prescription, then a pharmacist must intervene. In paren B, drug utilization and drug regimen reviews. Analyzing medication use patterns, identifying potential risk or interactions, and making recommendations for optimization are pharmacist-led activities. Paren C, consultations requiring judgment. Engaging in discussions with prescribers, healthcare professionals, or authorized agents about a patient's care or medical information that demands professional judgment is outside of a technician's scope of practice. Each technician must refrain from counseling patients, providing advice on therapeutic values, interpreting clinical data and medical and patient records, conducting medication therapy management, and engaging in practices outlined in clinical pharmacy agreements or collaborative drug therapy management agreements and in state drug therapy management protocols. A few examples of technicians engaging in these prohibited practices are, in paren E, when a patient asks for an OTC product recommendation. And while trying to be helpful, the technician says that they use the product, or their husband likes a particular product, or that the pharmacist often recommends a certain product. That is counseling and is not something that a technician can do. In paren E, another example is when a patient asks what the side effects are of a drug, and the technician opens a patient leaflet for them to read, and then reads the side effects to them. This is advising a patient on the use of a drug. Pharmacists are experts in advising patients. They will ask questions to determine the full question that is being asked by the patient and make a judgment on if the patient should contact their prescriber for follow-up. In paren G, after collecting the patient's medication history from their community pharmacy, modifying the patient's medication list in the electronic medical record without verification by a pharmacist. In paren J, prescription authority. You cannot prescribe any vaccine, drug, or device. Prescription decisions require advanced drug knowledge and judgment, which is solely within the pharmacist's domain. Paren K, administering drugs or devices, regardless of route or complexity, is prohibited for technicians. Notice that a vaccine is not listed in paren K, as a technician may now administer a vaccine according to rules that I'll cover in a few slides. In paren L, ordering, interpreting, or monitoring laboratory tests is engaging in the practice of pharmacy. These activities require medical expertise to select the appropriate test, analyze the results, and make clinical decisions based on the findings. In paren M, you cannot delegate any pharmacy tasks to other healthcare providers. All pharmacy-related activities must be performed by qualified personnel within their authorized scope, and delegation can only occur by a pharmacist. In paren N, access to the pharmacist. Denying a patient or their agent's request to speak to a pharmacist is unacceptable. Patients have the right to consult a pharmacist for any clarification, concerns, or questions they have. Please be aware that the previous rules prohibited a technician from accepting declination of counsel. The new rules no longer prohibit this, but you cannot deny a patient or patient agent's request to speak to a pharmacist. And paren 2, it reminds the technician that first and foremost, you work under the supervision of the pharmacist. You cannot assist in the practice of pharmacy if you do not have a pharmacist supervising you. All of your pharmacy tasks happen with the pharmacist's direct guidance and control. Think of it as a partnership where the pharmacist leads the way and you play a vital supporting role. In paren 3, be mindful of tasks requiring judgment. If something feels like it needs more than just technical skills, always ask the pharmacist to double check it. Remember, their expertise ensures accuracy and patient safety. You cannot perform tasks that require judgment, also known as discretion, without verification by a pharmacist. In paren 4, technicians must not engage in any form of discrimination, harassment, intimidation, or assault. Treat everyone with courtesy and respect, just like you'd want to be treated. Finally, in paren 5, if a patient, their representative, or practitioner needs to speak with a pharmacist, be open and responsive. Facilitating communication is another important part of your role. It's okay to ask clarifying questions to see if there's anything you can help the person with. But if they ultimately ask for a pharmacist, you cannot refuse to permit them to interact with the pharmacist. And now we've made it to the last and newest rule in the division: vaccine administration services by a technician. These rules permit an appropriately trained and qualified technician to perform the physical act of administering vaccines under the supervision of an appropriately trained and qualified pharmacist pursuant to a new law that passed in 2023, known as House Bill 2486. That law became effective on January 1st, 2024. The new rule adds training and certification requirements prior to administering vaccines, documentation requirements, notification, and record retention requirements. In paren 1, you can give vaccines to people who are 7 years and older, as long as you're supervised by a qualified pharmacist. However, there are 2 exceptions where you can administer vaccines to children who are at least 3 years of age in paren 2. During a public health emergency declared by the governor, or during a declared disease outbreak declared by the public health director. Remember, even in these exceptions, you still need to be supervised by a qualified pharmacist. In paren 2A, before giving a vaccine, a technician must receive hands-on training in infection control. This includes learning proper hygiene practices, handling of syringes and vials, disposals of needles to prevent the spread of germs. Identifying injection sites, understanding where to safely administer different vaccines according to anatomical landmarks, and proper injection technique, practicing the correct way to give injections to ensure the patient's safety and comfort. In paren 2B, before giving a vaccine, a technician must also hold a valid CPR certification that meets the following criteria. It must be issued by a recognized organization, either the American Heart Association or American Red Cross or another equivalent program. It must be specific to the age group and type of patient that you will be vaccinating. It must include practical skills to practice alongside the theoretical knowledge that you learn in books and by watching videos. It requires renewal every 3 years to maintain proficiency. When vaccinating, you need to document every detail of the vaccination in Parent 3. So the vaccine administered, the specific name and brand of the vaccine, the dose, which is the amount of vaccine that was given, the expiration date, the lot number. If a diluent was used to prepare the vaccine, you need to record the lot and expiration date of the diluent as well, and the injection site. In Parent 4, if you suspect an adverse reaction after administering a vaccine, you need to immediately notify a pharmacist. The swift communication is crucial for prompt intervention and proper reporting. The law permitting technicians to administer vaccines does not permit a technician to administer other drugs like epinephrine. In Parent 5, technicians can complete their required vaccine training through various approved programs. These approved programs include programs that are accredited by ACPE, the Accreditation Council for Pharmacy Education. Includes official courses from ACP accredited pharmacy schools or colleges. The state or local health department programs specifically designed for vaccine administration. Individualized training provided by a qualified healthcare practitioner. And other programs specifically approved by the Board of Pharmacy. In Parent 6, all records and forms related to vaccine training and administration must be kept securely at the pharmacy for at least 3 years. The board has the right to inspect these records upon request to ensure compliance with regulations. A few times in this presentation, I have mentioned continuing pharmacy education, or CPE, for technicians during each renewal cycle, July 1 to June 30th of even years, so it's coming up in 2024, technicians must have completed 20 hours of CPE. These hours must include 2 hours on pharmacy law, 2 hours on patient safety or medication error prevention, and 2 hours on cultural competency as defined by specific regulations. You have an additional 14 hours can be on any pharmacy-related topics. If you have not been licensed by the board for at least 1 year prior to July 1 of the renewal period, then you only need to complete the cultural competency CPE to renew your license. For documentation and tracking, you must register with the CPE monitor to track completed ACPE credit hours. Ensure that all ACPE credits are recorded in the CPE monitor, and ensure that all board approved or ACCME credits are uploaded to your electronic licensing record. Retain the documentation of completed CPE for 6 years. Excess CPE hours beyond 20 cannot be carried forward to the next renewal cycle. To keep up with the Board of Pharmacy rule changes and other hot topics, please make sure you were signed up to receive the Board of Pharmacy newsletters. These newsletters communicate important information to licensees and registrants and help keep you up to date. You are automatically added to the board listserv called GovDelivery based on your license type. However, if you don't keep your email address updated with the board, you will not receive these time-sensitive notices. You can also sign up for newsletters, board agendas and mailings, and rulemaking adopted rules notices by clicking under the subscriptions links at the bottom of the board's homepage, or as shown here with the subscriptions and newsletters link in the resources bucket. With the board's online eGov system, licensees can maintain their own record and upload documents directly into their profile. To update your profile, go to the board website, go to the licensees bucket, and click on Update or Renew My License or Registration. For first-time users, click Register a New Personal Account or Register a New Facility Account. Most licensees and registrants have already done this. Returning users use their previously created credentials to access the account with the My License eGov link. Once you are logged into eGov, use the menu in the upper left-hand side of the page to update your contact information, your address, phone, email, and employment. Remember, you have 15 days to do this, and upload documents such as your CPE certificates. Also, in the menu box, you can renew your license, request certified copies of your license or registration, and pay invoices. Please know that there's a compliance officer on duty each day to respond to licensee and registrant questions. They can be reached by emailing pharmacy.compliance@bop.oregon.gov or by calling the board office at 971-673-0001. Because board staff often work remotely, you may receive a faster response to an email versus a phone call. We understand that navigating board regulations can be confusing, so we're happy to help. When you have questions about the board's laws and rules, agency staff are here to offer assistance. Here's what we can do. We can point you in the right direction. We can help you find the relevant laws and rules that apply to your specific situation, including links for easy access. We can share additional resources. If available, we can provide helpful information like past newsletter articles or board statements that address similar topics. We can also offer a starting point. Keep in mind our resources are a starting point, and we encourage you to explore the laws and rules further for complete understanding. What we can't do, we can't give legal advice. Providing legal interpretations and explanations requires legal expertise, and we recommend consulting an attorney for specific legal advice. Predicting board decisions. Each board review is unique, and the board carefully considers each case before reaching a decision. We also can't offer guarantees. We can't guarantee a specific outcome, but we can assure you that the board follows a fair and thorough process. We're here to help, so feel free to reach out to us with any questions you have, and we'll do our best to assist you in navigating the regulations. And that wraps up this presentation. If you would like to receive continuing pharmacy education or CPE, you'll need to complete a quiz on the content and an evaluation of this course. The program code for this presentation is PEACH, like the fruit, PEACH. You will need to enter this code in all caps to complete the program quiz, which includes assessment questions I reviewed earlier in the presentation and a program evaluation. A link to the quiz with the program evaluation is located on the board's continuing education webpage. Alternatively, you can use the QR code on this screen to be taken directly to the program quiz and evaluation. The completion certificate will be emailed to you 6 to 8 weeks after completion of the quiz and program evaluation. Please note that while these informational programs are board approved for law CPE, they are not accredited by the Accreditation Council for Pharmacy Education, or ACPE. Therefore, completion of these programs will not automatically appear in the NABP CPE monitor. If you want to track non-ACPE credits like this program in the CPE monitor, you may be able to upgrade to the NABP CPE Monitor Plus program for an annual fee. This upgrade allows pharmacists to manually upload credits from this program and others like it. Alternatively, you can upload the course completion certificate for this program into your eGov profile and comply with the CPE record requirements in OAR 855135. And of course, if you ever have a question or concern, don't hesitate to contact us at the phone or emails listed on the page.